So I'm thinking about how we see the universe, how we see things around us, how we see reality, basically. And it occurs to me that we see reality in three dimensions, and we believe that these three dimensions contain everything. But I'm thinking about dimensions. Now, obviously, if you look at two dimensions, like a drawing or whatever, it has limitations on what you can represent in two dimensions, a picture. And then you get to three dimensions, and with three dimensions, you seem to appreciate everything. But in the same way that three dimensions differs from two dimensions, could there be other dimensions that exceed the capabilities of three dimensions? So I don't actually know if there's such a thing as four dimensions or five dimensions. I'm not sure if there is such a concept that exists. I haven't really looked at it. But I am just wondering that three dimensions differs from two dimensions by quite a lot. So can there be another dimension that exceeds the capability of three dimensions? So if you're working with two dimensions and you're not aware of three dimensions, then you're missing a lot. You can only work with the two dimensions you have to work with, and you simply can't see depth or whatever. But then I'm thinking you can represent depth in two dimensions with the way you draw things. So that's interesting. But a drawing that represents three dimensions is not the same as having three dimensions. So we live in three dimensions and appreciate it, and we're comfortable with it. And everything about how we live is designed to accommodate three dimensions. But are there other dimensions that we're simply not aware of? In the same way, if we were two-dimensional objects, we would only be aware of two dimensions, living in two dimensions. And the idea of three dimensions wouldn't make sense to us, maybe. And then if we became aware of three dimensions, we'd be amazed by it. And I'm wondering if that's the case with the way we live now. We live for three dimensions. Is there a fourth dimension that will suddenly make this seem limited and not in the same way that three dimensions makes two dimensions seem limited, could four dimensions make three dimensions seem limited? And I'm wondering, because I'm quite ignorant about dimensions, does a fourth dimension exist? Is time or whatever a fourth dimension? I don't know about how dimensions have been represented by people, but I'm just thinking for myself now, so who knows? So, could there be a way of seeing reality in a different way to how we see it now? Such that we could be aware of something that is there, but we just wouldn't see it normally. So I'm sitting here in an armchair in a room, and I'm looking around and I can see in three dimensions. But if there is another dimension that I'm simply not aware of, there could be some other aspect of reality that I'm simply not aware of. I don't know what that would mean at all. I don't imagine it would be like more 3 dimensions. I think it would be entirely different, maybe, with no connection to 3 dimensions. So, in the same way that 3 dimensions is very different to 2 dimensions, the fourth dimension, as I said, there might already be one. Maybe time is considered a dimension or something. I'm not sure the details, but for the sake of argument, we'll just say that I'm inventing a fourth dimension. So could this fourth dimension make 3 dimensions seem like the way 2 dimensions seems to 3 dimensions? So 3 dimensions obviously is a big advance over 2 dimensions, and we can appreciate much more, and it's far more, what's the word, interesting, it's far more involved, it's far more rich. So this additional dimension, this fourth dimension, could make 3 dimensions look the way 2 dimensions look to us. Of course, I don't have any idea what this fourth dimension would look like, if that's even the right word to use. But I am thinking about what's possible with an extra dimension. And if there is an extra dimension, there could be things going on in that dimension that we simply are not aware of, but there could be things going on. So in the same way that if we lived in a 2 dimensional universe, we simply wouldn't be aware of depth. We wouldn't be aware of another dimension. So we would miss a lot. So if there is another dimension to 3 dimensions, if there is a fourth dimension, there could be stuff going on that we're simply not aware of and we're missing. It would make reality a lot more rich, a lot more. There's a word that I can't think of at the moment, but it basically means that it's rich, it's more involved, there's more going on. So I'm wondering if it could be possible to appreciate this additional dimension. Are we basically designed to only see 3 dimensions and a fourth dimension and maybe additional dimensions to that? We just can't appreciate it. Of course, there's a thought of death and heaven and whatever, and maybe heaven could be represented by a fourth dimension. So once again, thinking of 2 dimensions on a piece of paper, and then you add a third dimension to give depth, it doesn't feel like it's possible to do anything else. Once you've added depth, what else is there to add? But if we were 2 dimensional beings, we simply wouldn't be aware of 3 dimensions. As we're 3 dimensional beings, so maybe we're simply not aware of 4 dimensions. Of course, there's no way of ever establishing whether a 4 dimension exists. Well, I think there's no way of establishing it. And we're just not designed to operate in 4 dimensions. Like a 2 dimensional drawing of someone isn't capable of living in 3 dimensions. It simply couldn't function. And that may be the same for us. We're 3-dimensional beings. The 4th dimension is unavailable to us. We simply couldn't operate in it. And if there is a 4th dimension, there could be so much going on that we're not aware of. It could be happening all around us in a sense, and we simply can't see it. So 4 dimensions must be, what's the word? It must be established as a concept. I've never looked into the idea of a 4th dimension, so I don't know, but I'm sure that there's stuff out there that's addressed this and put it to bed probably.